Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is your boy Fitzmonk TV here, aka GLauren33. I'm back here today with another episode of the Legit Shoot podcast. Here tonight with your WWE Survivor Series 2022 review and results. The War Games have come and ended, and man, we have a lot to talk about. A lot happened on this show, and you gotta remember there was only 5 matches, but a lot happened on this show. And now that's, Survivor Series has come and ended, we now get to start looking forward towards the end of the year and into 2023 as we get set for the Royal Rumble and then WrestleMania season. I always say this, if you guys have listened to me on this podcast for any amount of time, I've always said that really the planning for WrestleMania should start at SummerSlam, right? SummerSlam is basically your WrestleMania for the summer, right? And then, Survivor Series is the big event for the fall. And then, of course, the Royal Rumble, because I consider WWE have 5 big pay-per-views: Rumble, WrestleMania, Money in the Bank, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. We don't know there's going to be a Money in the Bank pay-per-view going forward. But, at least for now, those are your big 5 pay-per-views. If the Money in the Bank gets eliminated or whatever here in the next couple of years under the Triple H administration, then, we'll just, call it back the big 4. But I like to consider it a big 5. And when you look at things, right, you look at the landscape of WWE and the way things have been unfolding, this was a big pay-per-view. It was a big pay-per-view because under the Vince McMahon administration, and we talked about this on the preview and prediction show, Survivor Series had taken a step back over the last couple of years, right? Remember, during the pandemic, it was the best of the best, right? And it really didn't have much of any important focus. And this was the first Survivor Series since, I would say, 2019 that actually felt like that there were stakes involved, right? And, they brought over the War Games concept for the first time on the main roster because, the first 3 years that they had done War Games had only been in NXT. And, I believe Bianca Belair and Kevin Owens and Rhea Ripley and Io Sky and Dakota Kai, those are the only superstars on the main roster that had been in War Game matches in NXT. And, you knew that it was going to be a big show because, of course, they're going to do War Game matches in the future, and we don't know if every year Survivor Series is going to be War Games, right? We don't know, when the next time we'll see a War Games match. It could become tradition for every year Survivor Series to be War Games. But Triple H has said that, he wants big matches, big stipulation matches to actually be relative to the storylines. And that's something Vince didn't do. We would see that Hell in a Cell matches would be booked just for the sake of a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Right, but some of the feuds and the stories that would be on those pay-per-views wouldn't, they didn't necessarily have the build-up to, deserve a Hell in a Cell match. This year with War Games, you could say that the feuds did deserve it in a way, right? On the women's side, you have Damage Control, which they've been the big heel woman staple on the main roster since August, and I will rant about Damage Control in a little bit. All right, and you have Rhea Ripley, who's been killing it with Judgment Day, and then you have Nikki Cross, who had just, gone back to her old persona. And on the babyface side, you had, Bianca, Alexa, Asuka, Becky Lynch, who just came back this Friday on Smackdown. And Mia Yim, at least 4 of those women, I would say Alexa, Asuka, Bianca, and Becky, a little bit before Becky got injured. Those people, they've been dealing with Damage Control since Damage Control came back at SummerSlam. They've been dealing with this group, the entire time, right? So you can kind of say that, the way those feuds were going, that it deserved War Games. And then you look on the men's side, the Bloodline, they speak for themselves, right? They're the most dominant faction in WWE today. You can argue that they may be the most dominant faction in the history of WWE. I definitely think there is an argument to be made when it comes to that. And then, of course, the baby faces of SmackDown. You have the Brawling Brutes, who have been dealing with the Bloodline. Drew McIntyre, who's been dealing with the Bloodline most of the year. And, of course, Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens has, problems with the Bloodline because He went up against Roman Reigns way back at the beginning of Roman's reign, almost 2 years ago. And of course, Jey Uso got involved. And you can say that because of Jey Uso, KO never became Universal Champion. KO would have stopped Roman's title reign before it had even really begun. And, of course, his ties with Sami Zayn and the story of, Sami Zayn trying to prove himself as loyal to the bloodline and, trying to get along with Jey Uso. Definitely that feud also deserved War Games. So at least with the 2 War Game matches we got, right, those storylines and those overall feuds did deserve War Game matches. But it'll be interesting to see in the future, will future War Game matches on the main roster, will they deserve War Game matches? I know there was a couple people that were saying, oh, I don't think the women deserve a War Game match. I would disagree. I know definitely, you want to, have equality and you want the women to be on the same level as the men. But I know there's people out there that may have felt like, the woman didn't deserve a War Games match. I think they did. And definitely, you guys know, I am all for, women's wrestling. I care more about women's wrestling than males wrestling, so that's important to me. And definitely I do think that the woman killed it. I definitely will say without a shadow of a doubt the men's Survivor Series War Game match was better, but still I definitely think the women deserve the War Games match, and they definitely proved that they deserve War Games matches now and into the future. Like I said, War Games as a whole, the pay-per-view was pretty good. Like I said, we'll have to see how this evolves going into the future, because I don't know if we're gonna have War Games at Survivor Series every single year. I know there are some people that were kind of sad that we didn't get the traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series match. Right? We got the 5-on-5 War Game matches, but we didn't get the traditional elimination 5-on-5 match that Survivor Series is kind of known for. I definitely think that will return in the future. I know Triple H is gonna hear all the feedback from the fans, and then he'll meet with the creative staff and they'll make the best decision possible going forward. But it will be interesting to see in the future, will we see the traditional Survivor Series War Game match return. Excuse me. But like I said, War Games as a whole was a good pay-per-view. There was really, for me, only one match that really stunk up the joint, and I will kind of rant on that a little bit later, and that was Ronda Rousey versus Shotzi Blackheart for the Smackdown Women's Championship. And it has nothing really to do with Shotzi. It has everything really to do with Ronda Rousey, but we'll get to that when we get there. I was there in the TD Garden for the show. It was electric. It was a great crowd. It felt good to be, to have a WWE pay-per-view in the Garden in Boston. A couple of years ago during COVID, SummerSlam was supposed to be in Boston in 2020, and that when we were supposed to get Sasha versus Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship. The plan was to have Sasha and Bayley main event that show, and of course Sasha winning in her hometown. That was the plan, and I bought tickets for that show in advance. I was so excited, and then COVID hit, and the rest is history. But I was glad that Boston was able to get a major pay-per-view. Finally, we deserved it, and it had been years really since we had a major pay-per-view in Boston because of COVID and other things. I think the last major one may have been like Hell in a Cell, but still, it was really cool that we got War Games in the Garden, and definitely, hopefully, next year and in the future, we get more major pay-per-views. Who knows? I'll throw it out there. Could we get SummerSlam in the future back in Boston and get what we didn't get in 2020? But like I said, I had very good seats. I was on camera. I was in the camera seats on the floor. I was like row 4. It would have been hard to see me on TV because of course the War Games cage. Plus also, there was 2 rings, so the camera angles. Some of the matches were in one ring, some of the other matches were in the other ring, and of course the War Game matches, you have the cage, so it may have been tough to see me, but definitely I was screaming my ass off, especially during that main event. That main event was absolutely incredible. I absolutely loved what they did in the main event. And we'll talk about that when we get there. But all in all, a very, very fun time for War Games. A good pay-per-view, very good crowd, right? But yeah, for those of you guys who were watching on Peacock, I have not gone back yet and watched on Peacock. The only thing I went on Peacock to see was like some of the main event. But let me know, how did it look on Peacock, because I was there in attendance. So let me know, like, how was the crowd, how was the show, how did it look from a television perspective. But yeah. But either way, let's not waste any more time. Let's get into the actual card itself. Like I said, there was 5 matches on this show, and I guess I should start with the elephant in the room. This is the Legit Shoot podcast, so I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't talking about that girl on the wall right there, Sasha Banks. I will not lie to you guys. I was very disappointed that look at my freaking braid. Guys, this is my first time with braids. Like you guys have known, I've always, for at least the last couple years, I've had twist, right? So I decided to switch it up just for Thanksgiving and get braids. And I like the style, but the thing is, these braids are very, very small. Usually when I get twists, I usually get them like medium to big size, but the braids are kind of small. So and plus I've never had braids, so it's a little bit of an adjustment for me. I only have this for a couple weeks, and then I'll take them out and I'll go back to my normal style. Probably go back to twist before Christmas. But let me know how they look. Let me know if you guys are fucking with the braids or you guys just want me to bring the twist back. Anyway, I had this one braid that's just hanging out, like looking absolutely ridiculous, but yeah. Anyway, and if you guys saw me on the show last night, I had it in a ponytail, which was actually pretty cool. I loved how it looked in the ponytail. But anyway, let's get back to the show. But yeah, like I was saying, yeah, Sasha Banks. So I was disappointed that we didn't get to see Sasha return last night at WarGames. Of course, you guys know I'm a big Sasha Banks fan, and definitely, we talked about this really a lot of the year. There's been so many instances since Triple H returned where we talked about Sasha and Naomi returning, right? Some of us thought it would be after Damage Control debuted and they won the tag team titles in the tournament, right? That didn't happen. It didn't happen at Extreme Rules. It didn't happen at Crown Jewel, right? And a lot of people thought this would be the night, right? War Games. And then Becky Lynch returned on Friday at Smackdown, and I kind of took it out, but I still kept some kind of hope in my heart that, maybe, I don't know, maybe like Mia Yim gets like injured backstage or something. They do like a backstage attack, and then Sasha appears as like the savior, the last person to step up for Bianca's team, and they did not do that. They didn't do that, and I thought maybe Sasha would return to confront Ronda Rousey later in the show. If you guys, I heard that WWE muted the "We Want Sasha" chants on TV, right? And I don't think, and like I said, I have not gone back to watch the show on Peacock, but if that is true, I would say probably the reason for that is they didn't want that to take away from Ronda and Shotzi. Right? I don't think it was any like a shot to Sasha or anything like that. I think they did that because they wanted people to be more focused on Ronda and Shotzi in the ring and not, have, the "We Want Sasha" chants in her hometown to, take over the match. That wouldn't be fair to, Ronda and Shotzi, even though WWE fans can do whatever they want. So now we have to really look towards the Royal Rumble. That would be the next most likely time for Sasha to return, right? And of course, this year's Royal Rumble could be huge. We could have Cody Rhodes, Naomi, Charlotte, Sasha, and we could be in store for one of the most exciting Royal Rumbles of all time, especially this being the first one under the Triple H administration. There could be a lot to look forward to. And I did hear from a source that Sasha was training in Mexico the last couple weeks, right? She was getting some of that ring rust off, and she is prepping for a return to the ring. She is listed on WWE's internal roster page, but there's been so many rumors, about her maybe wrestling in AEW or even going to Japan, right? And I've said this all the time. It's the reason why I don't make as many speculation videos anymore. We're not gonna know anything until Sasha tells us, right? And we know Sasha loves to keep things private. That's the way she is. The media can make up all the stories that they want, but unless it comes from her, really, you got to take everything you hear about her with a grain of salt. But I do expect her to come back, most likely for the Royal Rumble, especially now that, the Survivor Series has come and gone. And I heard from a source that, the reason why Sasha has not returned yet is she has some other projects going on right now that she would like to compete or complete before making her return to the ring. And most likely the target would be early 2023, aka the Rumble. So I would expect Sasha probably to return for the Rumble, and then whatever they have in store for WrestleMania, that will be that, and then we will go from there, right? Of course, best case scenario, Sasha returns at the Rumble, she wins the Rumble, and then she goes on to fight for a championship at Mania against, Bianca or Ronda or whatever, right? That would be best case scenario, but of course, we're not going to know that until we see it happen. So you can always do something with her and Bayley, right? You can always have her and Naomi face Damage Control, but I don't want that. I don't want Sasha and Bayley to come back as a tag team. But yeah, there's like different, there's different things you can do. And like I said, I'm disappointed Sasha didn't come back at Survivor Series, but it did surprise me, one bit, right? It's just, it is what it is. Boston would have been the perfect place to do it since it is her hometown, right? But, still, like I said, it is what it is. There's not much we can do in that regard. Only Sasha knows when she will 100% be back. All right, but yeah, I did want to mention that because I knew people were going to have questions about it. Like I said, it is what it is. Sasha will be back. She'll be back when it's right for her. And, when she does come back, it will all be worth it. All the waiting we've done over the last 6, close to 7 months, and it will be worth it. Hopefully it'll be the last time we'll have to deal with a long Sasha absence, but still, it is what it is. So we'll just hope for the Rumble, and if Sasha doesn't return at the Rumble, then okay, then I would actually be worried about her future if she is actually ever gonna come back to WWE. But still, that's that. But getting into the actual card and people that were on the show, right? The show opened with the women's war game match, and of course the crowd was very, very hot. I predicted this. I said that unless Sasha's coming back, there's no reason why you should have the women's war game match first, and then have, of course, the Bloodline main event the show. That seemed like the obvious way to go. Bianca Belair started out for the women, and then I believe it was Dakota Kai that started off for the heels. And I'll say this, just being there live in attendance, I heard some people say that on TV that the women's war game match wasn't that good. I thought the match was fine. Of course, the men are always going to be a little more brutal and a little more aggressive than what the women will do. That's just the way things are, but that doesn't really take away from the match itself. And I also got to say, Bianca Belair in person, oh my gosh, she is so beautiful. And it's not my first time, watching Bianca wrestle in person, but just seeing her up close as I was to the ring at WarGames. And, she had her hair all braided up in cornrow style. And of course, her braid is almost as tall as her, right? And, she's ripped now. Like, she's absolutely jacked in person. It's kind of crazy. Plus, now she's started wrestling in like more wrestling tights. She's not wearing those long wrestling pants wore for most of her career. She is beautiful, stunning in person. Like it's woof. Like she blows you away when you see her live. How fit she is, how beautiful she is, and athletic, all that. Man, oh my gosh, all of them are great. Like Rhea Ripley is insanely jacked, right? All of them look so good, but Bianca and Rhea Ripley stand out. Like, oh, they look absolutely stunning. And like I said, back enough of me fanning out, but the match itself, like I said, being there in person, I haven't seen the match on I haven't seen the match on TV or Peacock, but the match live was fine. It was fine. It was very, very aggressive for the most part. Io Sky did her typical moonsault off the cage. It's like it's becoming her thing. I think she's been in 3 War Game matches, right? And she's done one in every single match. Beautiful stuff. Nikki Cross, was insane. Like her and Alexa Bliss got handcuffed to each other at some point. Nikki jumped. I think she did a crossbody from the top of the cage, which was great. And then when they throw each other up against the cage, you can hear it. Like definitely, ridiculous stuff. Very, very ridiculous stuff. And like this was great. We saw Bayley at one point. Bayley brought some ladders and a table into the ring, right? Ripley and Lynch, once they got in, everything went the hell. And it was just, mayhem. There was a point where I think Nikki Cross was like trying to tie Bianca's braid around like the cage itself so that Bianca couldn't move. There was also a point where Bianca got like pinned. There was like a table that pinned her against the cage, so she was stuck for a decent amount of time. And like it was just crazy, just absolute madness in my opinion. And so like to me, this was just really, really good. It was fun, action packed, very, very aggressive. There was some botches, but of course, when you have big matches like that go on for like 40 minutes, of course, there's gonna be some mistakes, but these mistakes weren't big enough where the match failed. It was still pretty good. Like, was it perfect? Was it out of this world? No. But it was a good War Games match. It's a very good way to open the show. And I liked it, And, of course, there was, like, callbacks and Easter eggs to, other War Games matches that, like, Io and Dakota Kai were in. Like I said, it was pretty good. The ending of the match came Becky and Bianca, they were teaming up. And, it was kind of weird because, of course, Bianca and Becky, they've had a long history, especially over the last year and a half. That started all the way from SummerSlam last year in 2021, all the way to, WrestleMania and then SummerSlam this year. A very, very long history. And now after everything, they're fighting on the same side, right? They're seeing an eye to eye. And of course, the fans were eating it up. The crowd was chanting, "We want tables." And then, Becky tells Bianca, they want tables, give them tables, right? And it was good to see Becky working as a babyface again. She's been working as a heel, but of course, Becky's always been at her best as a babyface, and the crowd wants to cheer Becky. So that's why Becky being a heel was always just like, why? I know she wanted to switch it up a little bit, but it was always going to be hard for Becky to get herself booed. The fans want to cheer her. She's naturally a babyface, right? So it was cool to see Becky, working as a babyface again. She's naturally good at it, right? And, she was kicking ass or kicking ass, no pun intended, or pun intended. And then, so she tells Bianca to get the table, right? Rhea tried to interfere, but Asuka hit her with the green mist, which was really cool to see live. I love it. You just see like the green mist residue on Asuka's chest, and Rhea's just like she has it all over her, and that was cool to see. And then the end of the match, of course, right? Bianca did the KOD on Bailey on the cage, right? And Becky did a beautiful leg drop from I believe it was the top of the cage. If not, it was like halfway, but she did a beautiful leg drop through both Dakota and Io to get the pin and the win, and the baby faces win. So like I said, and of course they're all celebrating with one another afterwards. They were like jamming out the Becky's theme song. Becky was telling how it feels good to be back, and that was that. Right. So the baby faces win. Not really surprised, right? I said in the preview prediction show that I would expect Damage Control to win because I felt like they needed the victory more. And I said this in the Discord server I'm in, and I'm friends with Geekdom 101. You guys know the very well known Dragon Ball YouTuber, and I was joking saying that Damage Control is buried, and then he kind of went off saying I don't know what the term buried means, right? Even though I was kind of just joking, but I will say this: the booking of Damage Control has been absolutely horrific. It has been absolutely horrific over the last, 3-4 months since they came back in August. And look, man, I'll blame Triple H. I'll blame whoever. But still, I love Bailey. I love Dakota Kai. I love Io Sky. I love these three as wrestlers. But as a faction, I think they've been presented and booked horrifically. Sure, yeah. People say, oh, they've won the tag team titles. Have Dakota Kai and Io Sky done anything with those tag titles? This is their second reign. Because remember, they lost those titles to Asuka and Alexa on a random Monday Night Raw just because they had to do like one title change at Crown Jewel. So they just had Dakota and Io win the titles back there. But they've done nothing really with those tag team titles, right? They haven't elevated or really done anything in the women's tag team division. The women's tag team division really has really done nothing in recent months. And then you go back to everything else, and really Bailey's lost to Bianca 2 straight pay-per-views, right? She lost at Extreme Rules and Crown Jewel, lost in a ladder match and a last woman standing match, and now she loses at War Games. In my opinion, the feud should be over. Like, it should be done. Damage Control really has done no damage. If anything, they've done no damage, and Bianca and the babyfaces have had all of the control. The only thing that Damage Control can lay their heads on is that they've won the Women's Tag Team Championships, even though they've done nothing with those titles. So I'm sorry. Damage Control has been booked like a very, very bad faction. And the only reason why that they're still irrelevant is because really Bailey's the leader of that group. That's not any disrespect to Io or Dakota Kai. I love them both, right? Great wrestlers, but Damage Control as a faction has done little of nothing. I keep picking Damage Control in these matches. I picked Bailey at Extreme Rules. I picked Bailey at Crown Jewel. I picked the heels to win this match, but they didn't. Because I thought, hey, you have Damage Control win here, right? And then over the next couple months, you can tell the story now with Becky, right? Maybe you move Bianca over to a feud with Rhea Ripley. I think Rhea should get a shot at Bianca, especially remember a couple months ago, that was the plan, I believe, for Money in the Bank. But I believe then Rhea got injured for a little bit. But I would do that for the Raw Women's Championship. And then I would, you could tell a story with like Becky feuding with Damage Control, right? And then if you want to have Asuka and Alexa in the mix or whatever, sure. But that's what I would do. But really, I don't know where they go from here. You've made the heels not look dominant at all. Usually the whole point is, right, you want the heels to be dominant to a point where it makes you want to see the baby faces eventually, come back and, get their revenge at, a pay-per-view or whatever. There really has not been any point in this feud where I can say personally that, Damage Control has looked super dominant. They've had moments, but there's never been a point where they look dominant and that made me like get excited and say, oh, now I want the baby faces to come back, right? Bianca's, really, she's beaten all of Damage Control on her own. Now she's had a team with her, right? She had Becky with her, and now they defeated Damage Control and the heels. So I don't know where the story goes from here. In my opinion, the story is pretty much wrapped up. So we'll have to wait on Monday and see what they do. But I just feel like the overall booking of Damage Control has been absolutely horrific, if I'm just being flat out honest. It's just been very, very poor, and I think they've done a poor job with Damage Control altogether. And that sucks because I love Bailey, I love Dakota, I love Io Sky, but just because I love these women doesn't mean I can't. I have to lie. I'm gonna sit here and be honest with you guys. I think their booking has been really, really, really poor in this feud. All right. Yeah, that's that in my opinion. But yeah, we'll see on Monday what's the plan. But in a logical way, logical thinking would be to end this feud and move on to something new, something more fresh, since this has been going on since August at SummerSlam. But we'll see what they have planned for us going forward with all of these women. Right. We'll see. Honestly, let's get Bianca a challenger for the next pay-per-view, no matter if it's day one or TLC or whatever the next live event is. But yeah, let's get Bianca her next challenger, please. And in my opinion, of course, it should be Rhea Ripley. But yeah, moving on. We had next up. What was the next match? Finn Balor and AJ Styles. The OC, they've been feuding with basically Judgment Day for the last couple months. AJ Styles has been feuding with Judgment Day for most of the year. Remember, this started way back in April with Edge at WrestleMania, and then it continued into WrestleMania Backlash, right? Then they took a break from it a little bit. They had AJ and Finn teaming up with Liv against the early adaptation of Judgment Day when it was just, Edge and Ripley and Damian Priest. Then things changed. Finn turned heel and Finn joined Judgment Day. They took out Edge, right? And then it was Edge versus Judgment Day for a little bit, right? It was Edge. Then it was Edge and Rey Mysterio, Dominic, and then a little bit of Beth Phoenix. Then eventually Dominic turned on Rey and then joined Judgment Day. So then they took out Edge at Extreme Rules, and now here we are. Styles came back into the mix with the OC, with Gallows and Anderson making their return, and then things led up to this point. And this was just AJ Styles and Finn. These are two of my favorite male wrestlers, so I was really, really excited to watch this live. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was in a little bit of a food coma here, not because of the show. I had 2 large slices of pizza at the show with a water, and like I said, I ate them pretty quickly during the women's war game match, because if I go to a live event, this is me personally, if I go to a live event or to a show live, I'll buy food if I'm hungry, but I'll try to eat that food quickly so that I could, I don't want to be dealing with grease over, because arena food is very, very greasy, and so that I could just focus and watch the show, right? So I ate the pizza very quickly while I enjoyed the women's war game match, and then I entered into a food coma during Styles and Finn. I was still able to watch the match, but I was struggling. And then I recovered, and I was good for the rest of the show, but definitely during Styles and Balor, I was struggling to stay awake. Not because of the match, just because the food hit me all at one time, because, my body was trying to, digest the food and all of that good stuff. So the match is going on, and they had Gallows and Anderson at ringside with Damian Priest and Dominic. Dominic, of course, was getting booed heavily. I would assume you guys saw the video from Thanksgiving where Rhea and Dominic went to the Mysterio household on Thanksgiving, and they attacked Rey Mysterio, which was absolutely hilarious. I would love to know how they planned that. They probably filmed it before Thanksgiving, right? Because I would doubt Rhea flew to the Mysterio household to film that on Thanksgiving, but still, That was pretty cool to see how Dominic is still making his dad's life a living hell. Even though they're on opposite brands and they're not even at TV tapings. One thing I do hope they do for Christmas is I hope they do like another version of that. That would be great. It reminded me of when Triple H raided Randy Orton's house during their WWE Championship feud in 2009. Like, I love those little feuds that take place outside of the wrestling ring. You know, it brings a realism to it. And, you know, clearly they're going to continue the story, and I believe this will all come to a head probably next year's WrestleMania with Dominic versus Rey. But, yeah. But still, back to this match itself, you know, just two of the best in the business, you know, just going at it. It reminded me of their TLC match a couple years ago when they went one-on-one. This was just two of the best in the business just going at it. Really, really good stuff. Balor came out with that weird black mask that he wear. I don't know how he can see in that when he wears those black masks. Like, you can't see any holes. You can't see his eyeballs or anything. So I don't know. And this was a different one than the one he wore during, I think, Extreme Rules when he went up against Edge. Remember the one he wore when he faced Edge had like spikes in it? But still. Styles also wore a mask. It was like a gas mask in a way. I think it was something he used to wear in Japan before he came to WWE. But still. Really good stuff. But anyway, the match itself, this was fire. So AJ had control early, but Finn, turned it around pretty easily. Then around 10-15 minutes in, the OC and the Judgment Day began the brawl. And then, they started brawling into the crowd, right? So that left Balor and Styles to go at it alone. I wasn't surprised that Rhea didn't come out because, of course, Rhea had just had a, grueling War Games match of her own. But they went at it, really went at it. It was impossible. It was going to be impossible for these two to have a bad match with each other. But yeah. But Styles hit Balor with the calf crusher, and he had Balor in that move for a very long time. But Balor was barely able to get out. But then Styles was able to hit the phenomenal forearm clean, and he got the victory. So Styles finally gets a clean win over the Judgment Day, and the phenomenal forearm he hit was absolutely beautiful. With all his years in the business, Styles is still doing his thing. This was a great match, and in my opinion, it probably is the end of the feud. Unless they want to continue it, they can, but still. Styles finally got a win over Balor, and that was that. That was that. We'll see. Of course, they could do more. They could do a 4-on-4 match if they want with Styles, the OC, and Mia Yim against Rhea and the rest of the Judgment Day. But we'll see what happens. They could just leave things where they are for now and then move both these men on to new things. But we'll see. But like I said, it was a great match. Enjoyed. I love both of these men. They put on a great show. Even though I struggled to stay awake during it, the parts that I was awake for, and I was awake for the finish, of course. Really, really good stuff. Now I think of it, you could do something like maybe AJ Styles versus Austin Theory for the U.S. Championship. I think that would be cool, right? And we'll talk about Theory in just a little bit, but that was that. Moving on, we had the Smackdown Women's Championship on the line. It was Ronda Rousey versus Shotzi Blackheart. This was clearly the cool down match without a shadow of a doubt, and this was easily the worst thing on this show, really. And this more speaks to Ronda Rousey than Shotzi Blackheart, right? Look, I have been a fan of Ronda Rousey for years. I was a big fan of her in the UFC. I was a big fan of her when she came over to WWE, and I think that 1 year she spent in WWE was a really good one. She had one of the best debut matches in WWE history, maybe the best match in WWE history. When she debuted with Kurt Angle against Triple H and Stephanie at I think that was WrestleMania 34, which is crazy. That was nearly 5 years ago. Yeah, but she went on, had some great matches with Sasha and Charlotte and etc. And her feud with Becky that led to, the women's main event at WrestleMania 35, all that good stuff. Here's my thing, though. Ever since she's come back this year, she is not the same. And I just don't know what it is. I just don't know if she just doesn't have that same level of care she once did, or if she's just really just not good. Part of it may have been that she was, her best moment during that 1 year she was here back in 2017, 2018, right? That may have been just because it was COVID. I mean, not COVID, just because she was going up against the 4 Horsewomen. If we're being honest with ourselves, right? What was it, 2018, 2019, not 2017, sorry. But yeah, like 2018, 2019, when she was dominating the women's division, she was actually doing, a lot of good. Remember, she spent a lot of that time feuding with, Sasha and Bayley and Charlotte and Becky, right? That may have been part of it because we all know how great the 4 Horsewomen are. But ever since she's come back, yes, she had a good match with Charlotte at, WrestleMania Backlash, that I Quit match. I was there for that match. That was a good match. But, yes, and I'll give her credit for the match with her and Liv at Extreme Rules, even though it was not perfect and there were some bad botches, still. Outside of that, what has Ronda done? Ronda hasn't done anything. You forget, really, sometimes that she's the SmackDown Women's Champion. Like, and someone with her name value, one of the greatest UFC fighters of all time. Sometimes you forget that she's even on the show. She doesn't add any value, really, anymore. And she hasn't done anything with that championship. She's gone up against, some of the younger people. She's gone up against Natalya, her old rival, her friend. She's gone up against Raquel Gonzalez. She just finished a feud up with Shotzi Blackheart. She's done nothing. These are the matches that are supposed to define you, right? That's one of the reasons why I call Sasha Banks the best female wrestler in the world. Because it doesn't matter if it's somewhere on her level like Asuka or Charlotte or Becky, or if it's someone that's not as good. She always knows how to put on a great match, whatever the level of talent she's in the ring with. She's, even if it's someone that stinks, she's able to make the match respectable, at least, right? How do you elevate someone that's not as good as you? That's how you become one of the all-time greats. That's how you get known as a great wrestler. It's not just, have fake going up against somebody that's really, really good or someone you have really good chemistry with. It's sometimes those matches that are not as important on the card. Think about Sasha Banks versus Carmella a couple years ago during the pandemic. Remember, I would urge for a lot of you guys who have not seen Sasha versus Carmella from TLC to, 2020, I believe, right? If you have not seen that match, go back and watch it. It's one of Sasha's most underrated matches because of how much she elevated Carmella. And the thing about it is, that match was not an important match on that card, really. It wasn't. But it ended up being one of, if not the best match on the card. I got to remember what Roman was doing during that show. But it may have been the match of the night. It was a show stealer. And it had no business being that good in a Thunderdome during the pandemic with 0 crowd. Yeah. Crazy, right? Crazy to think about. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to Ronda Rousey. She can't do that. She can't do that. On a night where your match is not important at all. When you look at that card at WarGames, that was the most unimportant match. And it was Ronda Rousey that was in the match. The most unimportant match on the card, right? Someone with your name value, Ronda Rousey. That's a match where you're supposed to come out and make a statement. Like, yes, I know this is not the most important match on the card. But that's not going to stop me from going out and making people talk about it. But the thing is, she went out there and people talked about it, but in all the wrong ways. This was a snooze fest. I wish this was the match I had the food coma for. I really do, because this was bad. It was bad. There was some botches that I seen on Twitter. Like, there was a DDT, because I was on the other side of the ring. I was on the camera side, so I couldn't see the DDT spot from where I was, unless I looked all the way up at the screen, which was all the way in the rafters. The DDT spot was bad. Like, oh my goodness. You look at what Chris Jericho and that guy from Ring of Honor did on AEW this past Wednesday, and you compare it to that spot with Ronda and Shotzi, very, very poor. Like, it's like Ronda didn't even know how to sell the move at all. And, you know, I've also seen clips of, like, Shayna telling Ronda what to do during their tag match on Friday. I'm just like, Ronda, like, you're not a rookie at this. I know, you know, you're not full-time, grinding for years on the road, but still, you've been in this business long enough to at least know the basics. Yeah, and you're the champion. That's another thing. You're the women's champion on Smackdown right now. What are you doing? You cannot be going out there and putting out D performances. This was, like, really, really bad. And, you know, it's just like, damn. It was bad enough where people were chanting, "We want Sasha." We were chanting, "We want Sasha" in the match. You know, and I had a little bit of a hope, a small hope, that, you know, maybe Sasha would come out at the end to confront Ronda and Shayna. Even though I knew it wasn't going to happen, I still had small hope, like, you know, I want to be wrong here. Please, please bring back Sasha and bring back Sasha here. And I guess on Peacock, they muted those chants, right? Just because they didn't want Ronda and Shotzi, you know, their match to be overlooked. But still, this was bad. It was just bad. I know there was also a spot where Shotzi, I think, jumped from the barricade on top of Ronda and Shayna, and they fell in front of some fans, which I would say that was probably the best part of the match. But altogether, this was just this poor, really poor. But yeah, but like I was saying, this poor stuff here, you know. Let me look. I'm trying to see if I have anything else in my notes. Yeah, but clearly, of course, yeah, like I said, there was several planted fans in the front row with the dive off the barricade. They got back in the ring, and, you know, Ronda did the armbar for the victory. I don't know, but it's something Ronda really needs to work on. And here's the thing, remember, Ronda's probably not going to be here after WrestleMania next year. I think a lot of us, you know, are expecting that, right? Ronda's going to be here, you know, for the rest of this year and probably through WrestleMania, but probably after that, she's probably leaving, and probably she's going to be done. You know, maybe she comes back for the occasional one-off match, but I think more as a more full-time performer, Ronda's probably done after this year. She probably wants to leave, have more kids, you know, do that kind of, you know, stuff. But so, you know, the stuff Ronda's doing right now, it's just bad. Her first run was very, very good, and this second run it's doing damage, you know, especially it's not helping the legacy that she started with the first run. Like, for real. She's always going to be Ronda Rousey, right? The baddest woman on the planet, but still. Like, she got to get better. She really got to get better. And they need to do something about that SmackDown Women's division. It is just poor, right? Because, you know, at the beginning of the year, they had Sasha and Charlotte, you know, to carry things. And then Sasha left, she walked out, and she's probably not coming back till 2023. Sasha's probably not coming back till the Rumble. So, and Charlotte's been gone since Backlash. So you're missing, you know, your two biggest stars in that division, and there's just not enough firepower to, you know, to carry things. They gotta do something. I don't know, like, dude, maybe trade. Honestly, maybe you trade, I don't know, Damage Control over the SmackDown. They're heels, so I don't know how much that would help. but something needs to be done to help that SmackDown Women's division, because Ronda is not, she can't carry that division on her own. She's just not good enough. If this was Sasha, or even maybe even Charlotte, then yeah. But right now Ronda cannot do it on her own. She's failing at it. Maybe have Naomi finally return and join the Bloodline. I that's what I think we all want, right? We want Naomi to come back and join the Bloodline finally. But I don't know. Like, they need something to pick up that women's division. Raw's women's division is stacked. You saw it in the WarGames match. That division is loaded. SmackDown women's division is really just Ronda and everybody else. They have some talented people on there, but it's really just Ronda, and it's poor. So if I'm Triple H, I'd be looking to do something to, elevate that Raw women's, or elevate that SmackDown women's division quickly, because Ronda can't do it. Do a trade or get somebody to come back. Like, the SmackDown women's division needs something to pick it up right now. Moving on. Next up, we had the triple threat match for the United States Championship. Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley, and Austin Theory. This was really good. Really good. Like I said, I don't know how it came off live or on Peacock. I was just live in attendance, but the crowd was very, very hot for this one. And for some reason, WWE's always good when it comes to triple threat matches. They really do a good job when it comes to booking triple threat matches. Usually because they're fastly paced and there's lots of big spots. But this was very enjoyable from, a live perspective, being there in the arena. Crowd was hot for this match. All three men got really big reactions. I was actually kind of surprised at the reaction that Austin Theory got. A lot of people were doing the A-Town Down. His theme song's actually kind of catchy when you listen to it loud. Everyone's doing the A-Town Down, A-Town Down. It's kind of cool. And I will give WWE credit. They've done a really good job of kind of presenting Theory with this new, more serious heel side of his character. He's always been a little more of a joke, and kind of, not taken seriously, but it's been a lot easier to take him seriously as of late, And I heard Triple H say it in a press conference, right? We talked about it. After Theory lost the Money in the Bank cash-in, people thought he was done, and people thought that Triple H just didn't care about Theory anymore, right? But that was not the case. Yes, we could talk about how the booking of the Money in the Bank briefcase was and how it may not have been the best decision, but still, you can argue that Theory's come out of it, pretty okay. His heel character is being taken a lot more seriously, and he's doing pretty well. He's the new United States champion after tonight, right? And excuse me. I'll mention as well, like I said, the guy's a great performer. He can put on a good match with almost anybody. The guy's he might actually be the future of this company. He has future world champion all over him. He's built like it. He has the wrestling ability. He's a pretty good promo, right? When he's on top of his game. The Theory has everything to be a star in this business for a very, very long time. Lashley, he's still babyface. He came out full babyface tonight. Seth was acting like a babyface as well. So I'm more certain to say Lashley's still a babyface. Rollins, it's confusing, but I want to say Rollins is a babyface as well. But of course, Theory was the heel here. And these two went at it from the get-go. Lashley clothesline Theory right out of the ring at the start, but then he tried to get back in, but Rollins knocked him right back out. So then Lashley and Rollins went out it for a little bit, and basically they did a really good job. All three of these men had dominant moments here. And there was a point, it really picked up here near the end. I really love how the match ended. So Rollins was doing suicide dives to both Lashley and Theory. All three men got back in the ring. Lashley tried to put Rollins in the hurt lock, but Theory jumped on his back with a sleeper to break it up. Rollins then hits Theory with the superplex into the Falcon Arrow. But then before he could nail the Falcon Arrow, Lashley hit him with a spear, which was great. There was also a spot where Lashley actually did a double hurt lock on both Rollins and Theory, and that would have been a cool way for Lashley to regain his title. But Theory, knocked Lashley out of the way and then got the pin for himself, and he is now the new United States champion. But, Theory did get booed pretty heavily for winning the match. But I predicted it. I said that all three of these men, there's not going to be a big complaint about who wins this match. If Rollins wins, he retains. Lashley wins, it's Lashley. Everybody loves him, right? And Lashley, would regain the title that he frankly kind of never lost in a way. And then Theory, this would be making up for him not winning the Money in the Bank. And altogether, man, like you said, it felt obvious that this was Theory going to win the match. With the way that Theory's been built up the last couple weeks after winning the Money in the Bank, it just made sense. And Lashley doesn't need that title. Rollins doesn't need the title. Theory needs it more than any of the other two men. Theory needs it the most. So I'm not mad at the decision at all, and it makes sense. It makes sense. We'll see what happens going forward. Of course, Rollins is probably going to want a rematch. Lashley's going to want a rematch. So I would not be surprised on Raw if one of those two men gets the first crack at Theory. We'll see what happens. If I had to take a guess, I would say probably Rollins versus Theory will be for the U.S. title tomorrow night on Raw, depending on when you guys, of course, are watching this video. But still, I don't really have any complaints with it. I don't. We'll just have to wait and see what happens here with Theory. There's different directions that they can take this. You can have AJ Styles challenge for the title. I already mentioned that earlier, but altogether, it was a fun triple threat match, and Theory winning made sense. It made sense, and I'm not surprised that they did it. But yeah, Austin Theory, A-Town down, is the new United States champion. I also, did you guys see during Theory's Titantron, like the Beyblade thing? I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, but they had the Beyblade, the Beyblade, or Blade Bay. I didn't do Beyblades growing up, but they had the Beyblade Titantron, which was a funny ass botch. I know people were laughing about that on So, but that was pretty cool to see. But yeah, Theory, new United States champion. Moving on. Lastly, but not least, we had the men's war game match. This was fucking great. This was great. And I said this on Twitter when I got home from the show. The Bloodline, I like them better than the Shield. I know, this year, 10 years of the Shield, all that good stuff. But still, I love the Bloodline. Everything about them. You have four family members with unique personalities. You have the fifth man in Sami Zayn, which isn't supposed to be in it, but, he comes back every single week. Paul Heyman put it best. I don't know if you guys saw what Paul Heyman said about Sami Zayn in the press conference. Sami Zayn is that guy who wants, to be a wrestler, right? He's like that guy that makes a guest cameo on a TV show, but he comes back every single week. And it gets to the point where he's so good that he becomes part of the main cast, right? I think you could take that from almost any TV show, right? I'll give you an example. Like growing up, iCarly was, very popular on Nickelodeon. Gibby for the first couple seasons, he's just he's a side character. He shows up every 1 or 2 episodes for like a small cameo. Like he takes off his shirt and he does like dancing and weird stuff. It gets to the point where as the seasons go on, he gets more and more involved. He's in more episodes to the point where he becomes a main character and he's there at the end of the show when the show ended. I know people are mad that he hasn't come back for the reboot, but that's what Sami Zayn is. He's that guy that's not supposed to be part of the main cast, but because of how good he is, he eventually becomes part of the main cast, and he eventually becomes part of the bloodline, right? At first, he's not in the bloodline. Then, slowly, he finally becomes part of the bloodline as like an honorary Uso. And then it gets to the point where he becomes fully part of the bloodline, and that's what the story of this match was. Regardless of whether you like Roman Reigns or not, right? And I can sit here and talk about how Roman Reigns has been champion too long, for days, for hours, really, right? Regardless of how you feel about that, you cannot complain. You can't complain about what this guy does when it comes to storytelling. Every single match that he's in, ever since he started this head of the table gimmick, it tells a story. And really, you just get more excited for each chapter. No matter if it's at the beginning when he's facing Jey Uso, his old family for the Universal Championship. No matter if it's against KO. No matter if it's against Daniel Bryan and Edge. No matter if it's against John Cena, the legend. No matter if it's against Brock Lesnar and becoming the undisputed champion. Everything that Roman Reigns has done in the last 2 years, it has told a story. And this historical run that he's been on. Whether you like it or not, you cannot deny the storytelling that they have done with this guy and the bloodline. And because of this run, it's elevating Roman into an all-time great. I'm not going to sit here and say Roman's one of the greatest of all time, right? Because I don't think Roman will ever be on the level of the Cenas, right? The Rocks, the Stone Colds, the Undertakers, the Shawn Michaels. But I would be dumb in saying that he's not. In the conversation, at least. This run has put him in that conversation. And it's the storytelling that they do with this guy. It's incredible. The bloodline, all these new characters. You have Paul Heyman, who's the special counsel, the wise man, right? He's not the advocate like he was for Brock Lesnar. He's the wise man there to serve the tribal chief. You have Roman, who is the tribal chief, the head of the table, the universal champion, the undisputed universal champion. Then you have the Usos, the cousins, the undisputed tag team champions. You have Jay, who's the the hot-headed one, the one that's always has to kind of be put back in check. You're right. Roman always has to do something extra to keep Jay in line because Jay's temper. You have Jimmy, who's the cool Uso in a way, right? He's the guy that's always chilling, putting in work, of course, but he's the guy that's friendly and just just chill. Then you have Solo. Solo's the badass enforcer. The guy who doesn't say much, who sits there with his arms folded like a security guard, but he hits hard. He has Umaga in him. He has the Great Khali. He has his father Rikishi, and he's just a badass. And then of course you have Sami Zayn, the hipster, the lumberjack, whatever you want to call him, who's not supposed to fit into this group, but he does. And the story that they told in this match with freaking Drew McIntyre, KO, guys that have went up against the bloodline and have failed, and then the Brawling Brutes who are currently feuding with the bloodline, the baby faces, the guys you're supposed to root for, right? They're trying to band together and put an end to the bloodline so that they can finally get the Roman, because as long as Roman has the bloodline, he's untouchable, right? And then it's just a fantastic story that they're crafting here. Fantastic. And this is what War Games is all about. It felt like a war. It felt like a war with huge stakes on the line. This match was incredible. Early in the show, they continued what happened on Smackdown with Kevin Owens talking to Sami Zayn and KO telling Sami Zayn that, Zayn should, betray the bloodline before they betray him. And the storytelling here, man, with Roman telling Jay, I'm going to fight out if Sami's lying. Because, Sami might lie to you, but there's no way in hell he's going to lie to me. He's not gonna lie to the tribal chief. Then Sammy comes in later in the show, and Sammy or Roman asks Sammy, did you talk to KO? And Sammy's like, yeah, but it wasn't that like that. KO was talking to me. I just listened for the most part, right? And then Roman's just staring a hole through Sami Zayn the entire time. You have Paul Heyman in the background, and I'm just like, holy shit! That's the storytelling they're telling you through Roman not saying anything. This is what I'm talking about. Like, it's just really, really, really good stuff, and Roman doesn't have to say much to get his point across. That's what's really defined Roman throughout this run. He doesn't have to do much. He's gonna stand there for the most part, and then he can tell a story with just through his nonverbals, right? And then Roman tells Jay before the match, we'll see exactly who Sami Zayn is made of tonight, and that goes into the War Games match. The crowd was on fire for the match, and like just the last 10 minutes alone were absolutely on your feet. Like, if the cage wasn't there, you would have seen me where I was sitting, just standing up for most of it. And like, I felt kind of bad because of course there's people behind you, and they want to see as well. But the end of this match is something where you just want to be on top of your feet. Like, you're not sitting down. Like, it was just freaking madness. But getting into it, the baby faces come out. Everyone's excited. The Bloodline's entrance live always gets you. That's the head of the table theme song. The final boss. It's just, I love the song so much. And then, of course, the lights, the pyro, this the Bloodline's entrance. It gives you goosebumps. It really does. It's like you're fighting the final boss in the video game on the hardest difficulty. So then they come out and they get in the cage. Paul Heyman gets Roman Reigns a chair to sit in the cage. But I'm just like, damn, like, head of the table. So then the match starts off with Jay going up against Butch, right? After a couple minutes, you see Ridge Holland comes in. Then after a couple minutes, you see Jimmy Uso is going to come in for his brother, but Roman stops Jimmy Uso and then sends Sammy out there because Sammy and Jay, of course, have had issues. Jay's the one member of the Bloodline which Sami Zayn has not been able to get along with, right? And then, so Roman sends Sami Zayn out there, and Sami at first is hesitant, but of course he doesn't. He knows this is the night where truly, we're going to see if he's part of the Bloodline or not. So he comes out, and, him and Jay, they're going up against, the Brawling Brutes. Eventually, Drew McIntyre comes out as well, and you're like, Drew is huge. Like I said, these guys are huge in person, right? Drew comes out, and he's causing havoc. And then eventually Jimmy finally comes in. And then there's a moment where Jimmy is trying to break up because Sami Zayn and Jay are going at it. They're pushing each other. And then like the camera cuts, the cutaways to Roman in the cage were brilliant and so on point. It's like every minute or so they would pan back to Roman to see how he was reacting. And you just see Roman just sitting in the chair, just shaking his head like, damn, these clowns, man. If I have to come in and deal with their nonsense, I'm just like, amazing cutaways. Then, KO comes in. He comes in with the chairs, and he's just whooping people's ass left and right. But then eventually Solo comes in, right? The enforcer, because you knew Roman was going to be the last one out. Everyone knew that. So Solo comes out. Solo was a guy that really impressed. I think there was like a silent MVP outside of Sami Zayn in this match. I think it had to go to Solo. Really, KO, Sammy, and Solo were very, very impressive here. Especially for Solo, because remember, there's still some people that are, getting used to him. There's people still that may not be familiar to him, but he's been booked perfectly on the main roster, if you ask me. He's the enforcer. He's a badass. There was a part where KO throws him against the cage and he just eats it. Then KO like hits him with a super kick and he eats that. It took like 3 super kicks just for Solo to finally fall down and take a breather. But it really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. And you know, there was a point where I think Solo like did like a like an Umaga driver. I forget who it was on it. I think it was on one of the Brawling Brutes, but it went through one of the tables in the ring, and it was just devastating. When you hear like the table break, you're just like, "What the hell just happened?" And then Sheamus came out, right? And then of course the final man was Roman. I also forgot to mention, during the Bloodline's entrance, excuse me. During the Bloodline entrance, like I said, the Bloodline's entrance is fucking fantastic. And there was a point during the entrance where Solo turns back to the baby faces, and he's just like, serving as like a gateway, almost like a security officer, like, just like staring a hole through all the baby faces. And I'm just like, damn, like it's those little added elements that makes the Bloodline such a cool faction. I just love them, all with unique personalities. So then, of course, Roman was the last guy to enter, and it felt like that final boss, right? Because as the countdown is going, everybody in the arena is standing up. We're all half of us are like putting our ones in the air, like we the ones, and the clock's counting down, and then you see Paul Heyman on the side of the cage counting down as well, and he's and then you see Roman just like getting ready, and then he comes out and it's like, uh-oh, the final boss is here. And then Samantha Irvin, I believe is her name. She's like one of the ring announcers. She was fucking fantastic. Her announcing throughout the entire show was great. But at the end, when she's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, War Games has begun," it makes you want to like get ready to fight somebody the way she says it. And I'm just like, wow. And then this is just chaos. If you thought the women's match was chaos, this was just chaos, man. Oh. So Jay hit Sami Zayn with a super kick by accident, but Jay didn't even seem, to be sorry about it. And I was like, oh, everyone's like, oh no. And the crowd's just doing like Sammy Uso chants. That's not Usi. Great stuff. So then Zayn recovered. And then the finish to this match was great. So KO and Roman, right, are staring each other down, right? Roman's yelling, "How many times do I have to kill you for you to get the message?" And KO say, "I'm not finished with you, Roman. I'm not done with you." Because we know that KO, he blames, the Bloodline for costing him the Universal Championship almost 2 years ago, right? KO believes in his heart that if it wasn't for the Bloodline, he would have been Universal Champion before Roman's run, ever started, right? He would have ended Roman's title run before it ever even began. So, KO's just yelling at Roman, "I'm not done with you." They go at it. Roman hits KO with a Superman punch. Roman goes for the spear, but KO counters with a pop-up powerbomb. Then he hits the stunner, right? And remember, Roman, even though, Roman hasn't, he's been champion for 2.5 years, 800 days. Remember, he hasn't been pinned in over 3 years, in any match since 2019. I think the last person to pin him was Baron Corbin on Smackdown, if I'm right. Someone fact check me in the comment section, please. So then Roman gets hit with the stunner, right? It looks like KO's gonna win the match for his team, and then Sami Zayn stops the ref. He stops the ref. Instead of bringing up the count, he stops the ref. KO is shocked. KO stares a hole through Sami. KO starts yelling at Sami, "This is your family? This is your family?" Right? And then all of a sudden, Sami Zayn hits KO with a low blow, which everyone's like, holy shit. You remember, the part of the story is KO and Sami have been friends for well over 20 years, right? Even with their ups and downs, they're still brothers to one another. So Sami Zayn betrays KO by hitting him with a low blow, right? It would have been one thing if he just punched KO in the face, but he hit him with a low blow, one of the most disrespectful things you can do in the ring. Then he hits KO with a haluva kick, right? And right before he does it, he's looking at Roman. It's like he's doubting himself in a way. He's like, should I do this? Should I do this? You know, but everyone knows this is the moment where Sami Zayn is going to show his true colors. Is he part of the bloodline or not? So then he hits KO with the haluva kick. And then instead of going for the pin and ending the match, he looks right at Jey Uso and he's like, here, finish it. And Jay's shocked, but then he hits him with the Uso splash, and then that is it. 1, 2, 3. The Bloodline wins War Games. And everybody in the crowd, I was sitting next to this Englishman, like, who speaks very, very good English. You could hear his accent and everything, right? And we were just going crazy. Like, we've never met before, but wrestling brings people together. We're dapping each other up, you know, like, damn, like, we were holding on to each other during the ending. We're like, holy shit, what the hell is happening here? And like, oh, the ending of that match, and I went back, that was the only part I've seen on Peacock. The ending of that match, both live and on Peacock, was absolutely spectacular. It does straight goosebumps, man. You know, goosebumps. And I can say this, like, the women's match, that had the big spots, but this match was about the storytelling. And this was it, man. Afterwards, Roman hugged Sami Zayn, and then Jey Uso and Sami Zayn finally bury the hatchet. Jey hugged the hell out of Sami, lifted him up in the air. Sami does his handshake with Jimmy, and the Bloodline celebrate doing We the Ones that end the show. And then after the show went off the air, you see Sami Zayn climb the cage, right? And then he's like, he's doing the We the Ones in the air, and the crowd's going crazy, and then the Bloodline's looking at him, and then they're like, wow. And then they walked away, you know, and that was the end of that. Even after the show was over, if you're live in attendance, you just see KO standing there. KO was shocked. KO's like unwrapping his hands and everything. And this is like 5 minutes after the show's ended. KO's like the last person in the ring. And it's like he's pissed. And he's like pissed. He's flabbergasted at what just happened. And he's just like, damn. And you can tell this is not over. This is not over at all. I would not be surprised if KO gets, you know, traded over the Smackdown. I heard a rumor earlier today that KO versus Roman is planned for the Rumble, for the Universal Championship. If you want to go down that direction, that's fine. I'm not going to complain about it. You know, of course, it is obvious that KO probably won't beat Reigns for the title, but I love KO, so I'm not going to complain. But, you know, this could really just be more of a larger overarching story, right? Because I think we all know where this is most likely going. You know, eventually, yes, everything appears all great with the Bloodline, right? Everyone's on the same page. But eventually, something's gonna happen. I don't know when it's gonna be. It could be at the Rumble. It could be at the Elimination Chamber. Something's gonna happen here in the next couple months. You know, that's gonna change things with Sami Zayn and the Bloodline. Everything looks good right now, but I think somewhere down the line something will happen, and eventually either Zayn will betray the Bloodline or the Bloodline will betray him. One of those two is happening, and I think that will lead to KO and Sami Zayn teaming up, being a babyface tag team, and then going after the Usos for the tag team titles at Mania. That's what I would do. That's what you should do, you know? So even if KO loses to Roman, could lead to a much more important storyline going into WrestleMania. And like I said, I don't know. Maybe you also get the Paul brothers. I know the Paul brothers want to team up, and they want to challenge the Usos for the tag team titles. Maybe it's a triple threat. Maybe it's KO and Sami versus the Usos versus the Paul brothers at WrestleMania. Maybe you do that. Honestly, I think the more important story is KO and Sami versus the Usos, but who knows? But that's where I think things are going. And it'll be interesting to see. But just it's the storytelling here, man. The storytelling, the storytelling, the storytelling. It is absolutely insane. Very, very, very good stuff. Um, like I said, this was a great match. It was fantastic. A amazing way to end War Games, in my opinion, and I cannot wait to see what happens going forward. But yeah, really, really good stuff. Really, really good stuff from War Games. A very, very enjoyable show. Let me know in the comment section, what did you guys think of War Games, and where do you think we're going forward here with this story, man? But like I said, really, really good stuff. The Bloodline, I gotta say, they are an all-time faction. All-time faction. Maybe even more dominant what the Shield were in their prime. And I'm being 100% honest. You know, I love the Bloodline. I think I like them more than the Shield. I love both. I love Romans and Mox and Rollins, right? But the Bloodline, they just hit different. They really do. And this was a very, very good, enjoyable show. Very, very enjoyable show. Um, but yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you guys enjoyed the show, let me know what was your favorite part and where do you think we go from here. Thank you guys for all the love and support. Leave a like in the video. Also subscribe if you guys are new to the channel by hitting the bell to my name, Fitzmonk TV, so you guys are notified every time I post a new one. I will be back with more. We'll see about Monday Night Raw. I might have a review for you guys. We'll see. Depends on how things go. But other than that, that's about all. I will see you guys later. Peace.